Greetings, everyone, and thank you for joining this presentation on practical, fun, and creative ways to support your child's learning. I hope that I am able to provide you with ideas that will not only assist with academic principles, but that also provide opportunities to really nurture positive relationships with your child and others. It's important to keep in mind that when we think about learning, supporting and preparing your child for school focuses on much more than just your core academics. As I was led to create this presentation, I really sensed this both as an important need and a focus. So how do we encourage positive relationships? This really is something to think about when we think about our relationships at home. It definitely begins with our relationships at home. So I want to focus on teaching compassion first. Compassion for others and even the ability to think of and put others before yourself prepares your child for building relationships and interacting positively with others across their lifespan. This isn't something that can be taught in a day or a week, but over time. Compassion is modeled for your child by how you interact with them and others in daily situations. It is modeled by how trusted adults show your child grace when they make a mistake, and how they observe others being treated when they are having a difficult time. It involves frequent in-the-moment teaching as situations occur. So these are all some simple skills that are needed in teaching your child to be compassionate toward others. First, teaching your child how to recognize emotions in others. This includes everything from recognizing how facial expressions relate to emotions, to a person's voice tone, how they act, all of those cues that allow us to understand how a person may be feeling. It's important to teach your child to recognize emotions starting at a very young age. And this can be done even through, reading books together and as you come across various situations with people in your life. And then teaching your children how to respond to emotions in others. And this is where modeling and talking about daily situations that occur in your home or that you read about in a book or observe in the community come into play for teaching this skill. It involves talking about your child's feelings, your feelings, and the feelings of others. I just want to emphasize how important teaching your child to help others without expecting anything in return really is. This can be as simple as holding the door open for someone or helping clean up items that someone dropped. But teaching your child to want to be helpful toward others and experience the joy of making another person's day better. We all know there are days where one person's kind actions can make such a needed positive impact. And we've experienced that ourselves. Teaching your child to offer a sincere apology, not only to you as the parent or to maybe their teachers, but peers as well. Teach them to be specific. I'm really sorry I hurt your feelings, or I'm really sorry that I did this. It's also extremely important for your child to be able to admit when they've made a mistake. This focuses on being honest, perhaps admitting that they didn't realize something negative would even happen as a result of a choice they made or a specific action that they did. But being able to admit a mistake as well as apologize for how something they did negatively impacted someone, whether it was intentional or accidental, is such an important life skill. And then also giving, just giving to others. This goes right along with compassion and putting others first. Helping others or making something for others is a way to give of your time. For younger children, this could include making cards and crafts for someone, or for older children, this could also include helping an elderly neighbor, cooking a meal for someone going through a tough time, or volunteering at your church or in the community. I mentioned at the beginning about how teaching compassion begins with how you model compassion toward others, but I do want to emphasize how this does really begin in your home. I also want to really emphasize about how important it is to give your child your undivided attention for a portion of each. We all live very busy lives, and especially now, there are many stresses we are facing. Show your child how important they are by putting down electronics such as your cell phone and being intentional about focusing on only them. That gives them a chance to share their day and what is on their mind. Be in tune with their emotions and provide support when they are having a difficult day or maybe they faced a difficult situation. Or be excited with them for something great that happened that day. Just make sure you are providing those opportunities for open, uninterrupted conversation. I wanted to just talk for a minute about a Super Bowl commercial that I came across several years ago. I'm not one of those people who watches the Super Bowl for the actual football game, but for the commercials, I'll be the first to admit that. And there was a commercial, it was a fruit cup commercial. So, like those Dole fruit cups that you can get in those packages at the grocery store. And it was before a sports event, and a parent had written on the fruit cup with a Sharpie um, an inspiring message for their child, wishing them good luck at the game. And I just remember being like, oh, that is such a great idea. Never mind the fruit cups and what the commercial was really about, but writing messages on fruit cups that you can put in your child's lunch every day. And this year, that's something that I personally have really made a point of doing, always making sure to put the words, I love you on that fruit cup, regardless of what else I may put on there. It might be a picture I draw or just something to make my children smile, but I always put those words I love you on there to remind them during the day when they're at school, I'm at work, that I'm thinking about them and that I love them. And I just wanted to include that in this presentation because it's just an example of something small or seemingly small that you can do that can make such a big impact. So encouraging independence, something that can be observed in the school setting, especially for our younger children just entering school, is learned helplessness. And what I mean by that, I don't want that to come across negatively, but there's suddenly this expectation to do a lot for yourself and to be independent. And as parents, very often it's easier just to do it ourselves. It's easier to do it ourselves because we want it done a certain way. And very often your young child isn't going to do it the way that you want it done. But especially when your child is showing an interest in helping with something, do it because you are also encouraging them to want to help. If they want to help, you want to foster that because, again, it's a life skill. It's something you want your children to be doing. I can attest to how this requires patience on the part of the parent. And it really begins with modeling first. Then you want to observe, give some verbal guidance, and eventually hoping that your child will complete the task independently. So some examples that come to mind is everything from dressing and toileting routines to learning to tie your shoes, opening lunch items. When your kids are in the cafeteria, there's only a limited number of staff available to assist with things like that. But your child will be much more successful trying to do things on their own at school if they are used to this being an expectation at home. And I really want to drive home that point because children who are used to things being done for them are going to be resistant and probably frustrated at school if this is the first time they're facing that expectation. And along with that, give your child daily chores. That really encourages independence. Even folding laundry, folding towels, that's a really simple chore that you can start with for perhaps a younger child. But again, it's nurturing their desire to help at a young age. Problem solving is also a huge important skill to begin to foster early with your child, even before they start school. It's something that is addressed at school, but it isn't focused on. It's more of an expectation that we should be able to problem solve through situations as they occur. And of course, we learn how to do math problem solving. That's focused on a lot. But this is more, I'm referring to the daily problem solving. Maybe when a situation happens where someone is upset or frustrated and needs to cope, and what they can do to be successful in working through a situation that's difficult. So how do we problem solve in everyday situations? Well, first, talk about what the problem is, verbalize it, talk through it so you can figure out what it is you need to work on. And then what do you need to happen? What is your end result? That's where you can then work from, okay, this is the problem. This is what we need to happen. What do we need to do to get there? And do we need help from others? There are definitely times where a child is not going to be able to solve a situation all on their own, but learning who they can ask for help and how to ask for that help appropriately is very important. And then breaking it down, well, what should we do first? What is our first step toward working toward solving this problem? And ask questions such as, well, what do you think will happen if we do this or that? Will there be a consequence to that? Or will that help us in what we're trying to achieve? So we talked previously about admitting when we make a mistake, but then we also really need to focus on mistakes not equaling failure, because society often tells us that making a mistake is failing. And that's not the message that we want to give our children if we want them to learn from their mistakes. Mistakes are moments of teaching opportunities, learning opportunities, so that we can know what to do in the future. We can't change the past, but each moment is the beginning of the rest of our lives. So we can focus on what to do the next time. Going along with that, the coping with the frustration and disappointment when we make a mistake, really focusing on how we respond when we make a mistake, specifically when we as adults are feeling frustrated and disappointed. Again, this goes back to how you as the parent model your response to these emotions and then provide support to your child when they need help coping with the same feelings that, you're used to experiencing when you're frustrated or disappointed. And then goal setting. So this kind of goes along a little bit with the problem solving, mapping out a plan. So, we all have times in our lives where we need to make a goal to do something in the long term as opposed to the short term. So this is something that's also helpful at even a young age for your child to talk about. Of course, they're not going to be able to set long-term goals and know how to achieve them all on their own independently right away, but just starting to teach those skills. So map out a plan. Maybe you're making a gift for someone for Christmas, for example. So what is your end goal? What date do you need it done by? And what do you need to do along the way to make sure it's done? How long will it take? And that's where you talk about the short-term goals. You can even use a calendar and map out what needs to be done by when in order to accomplish your goal. And this would then help plan even in the school setting. Your child as they get older, they're going to have long-term projects. It's not just going to be a daily homework assignment. They're going to have projects that they may have weeks to do, but are more involved and have lots of steps along the way. So teaching them how to make a plan to accomplish long-term goals, again, is a life skill that is something they're going to need to be able to do independently as they get older. And then it also teaching perseverance. Some goals seem daunting or even some of the steps along the way may be very time consuming. And, even as adults, sometimes we just want to take a break or give up from it. But again, we need to teach that perseverance because without it, it's hard to meet those long-term goals. So then I'm going to get into some practical, fun, and creative ways to also specifically foster how to support your child's learning outside. So I've mentioned quite a bit already about talking to your child about everyday situations. I want to just mention that a key predictor in how well a child will function by the age of 10 is how many words they have heard before age 3. So talking to your child is important for so many reasons, but building vocabulary in and of itself is one of the really important reasons. We live in a society where there's a lot of electronics available for kids, and there's a lot of even apps that are advertised for young children. But it's important to keep in mind that screen time activities don't encourage that language development. Face-to-face time and interacting with your child and talking to your child, that is what encourages language development. And then with that, talking about what words actually mean. When you're doing an activity and you use a word that maybe your child doesn't know, explaining it right then and there. Again, it's that in the moment teaching. Reading together every day. Now, that's a recommendation from educators. Really, the number one recommendation from educators right from birth, to read to your child every day. But it's also a perfect opportunity to provide that individual attention to your child. It's the time that you can, snuggle close and just have that undivided attention. Whether it be part of your bedtime routine or some other time of the day. It's just, there's so many benefits to reading with your child every day. Some more just creative ways you can support your child's learning at home. So for younger children who aren't reading yet, playing rhyming games really helps with later skills needed for reading. Maybe your child has some trouble sitting still for a story or paying attention to a story. You can make up stories together, where you tell a part and then they take it and say some more of what they think should happen in the story, and then it's back to you. That also helps with learning to take turns. I know I mentioned previously about talking about the characters' feelings and facial expressions in the pictures of a book. Very important to be able to do that. Make predictions. What do you think will happen next? That's something that your child will be needing to do in school. Discussing possible solutions to problems in the story, that goes right along with problem solving. Maybe it's not your situation, a personal situation you're trying to problem solve through, but it teaches the skills of how, relating to characters and how they might be able to come up with a solution for a problem in the story. And then relating that story back to your own personal experiences as well. Just in general, when you're thinking about supporting your child's learning, build on your child's interests. Are they interested in outer space? We have so much available at our fingertips with technology these days. You can research on the internet, Google, and really cater to your child's interests and make learning fun or make learning interesting to them. Even doing fun science experiments. I recently did an experiment, or a couple experiments actually, with baking soda and vinegar, and teaching about, carbon dioxide. That's, what creates the bubbles in the soda and what makes the cork shoot off the bottle if you put baking soda and vinegar together and close it very fast. Or even you can blow up a balloon. You Google fun science experiments with baking soda and vinegar, you'll be able to come across these types of activities. But when you're doing those types of activities, ask questions to your child like every step of the way. So what do you think will happen? And not only does that engage them, but it gets them thinking and making predictions, and then they get to find out, if they were correct. And I can assure you, even if they didn't make the right prediction, if it's a fun experiment, they're still going to be excited about the result. So in a world with GPS, we love GPS, and I'm very thankful we have GPS. But something that's starting to slide with the invention of GPS is a child's ability to really understand what a real map is and how to use one. Being able to read a map really helps develop spatial skills. And it's still an important skill to have, even though we do have a GPS usually at our fingertips when we're traveling. So some ideas, again, just fun ideas to support your child's learning at home. Make a real treasure map. And have your child, use it to find your hidden treasure. Or maybe map out a hike through a park together. So a real park with real hiking trails. Decide which way you're going to go and then use the map and follow it. Looking at real maps in a book Also, doing puzzles and mazes are also great for building spatial skills. So, those are just all activities that I would highly recommend you do with your child. Measuring. You can measure with different everyday household items. So maybe take a plastic spoon and see how long, the length of your living room is by using spoons. You can even use your child as the measuring unit. Like how many of your child would you need to get across from one end to the other? These types of activities are fun, but they're starting to teach the idea of measuring before your child would actually be using rulers with centimeters, inches, and being more specific with measurement. It helps teach the idea of measurement. And then also cooking and baking together. You need to use those measuring cups and understanding that you need a certain amount of something to make whatever you're baking or cooking come out the way you want it to. Um, Color shape math facts or state capitals jump was me trying to figure out what to name this activity, but I'm just going to explain it. When you're learning any type of like subject or rote information, for example, when you can incorporate movement to that, especially for younger children, it helps the information to stick better. So when I say color shape jump, if you were to say take some sidewalk chalk and make different shapes with different colors and then call out a shape like orange triangle, blue circle, and have your child jump on it. Not only are they identifying the information, but they're having fun doing it and they're moving. And why I named this with math facts or state capitals jump, you really can do this with any type of information that your child would need to memorize. So it's not only for maybe your preschool, kindergarten age child, but math facts, your addition facts, your subtraction facts, your multiplication facts. If you just have an area with a whole bunch of numbers where they would need to jump on the answer, you can work on math facts. Or maybe your child's working on learning the names of the states or the state capitals, and you call out the state and they have to land on the capital. These are just some more, I'm trying to get across the point that it doesn't have to be flashcards all the time when you're learning information. You can make it fun. You can also play memory, with information, pretty much the same kind of information. And playing memory in and of itself, the game memory, actually helps with writing later. This was something that was mentioned at a Welcome to Kindergarten workshop that I attended once. The reason it helps with writing later is when you're writing, you have to be able to hold information in your mind about what you want to write about as you're going through the process of writing the words. And usually the ideas would be coming to you much faster than you're able to write them. So when you play games such as memory, it teaches you, or I don't want to say teaches you, but helps you with that skill. We're getting toward the end of this presentation, and I really wanted to talk a little bit about money and how teaching the coin values, for example, or the dollar bills and the math related to money is important, but you can also teach money management and financial responsibility right along with that at a very young age. So, I talked a little bit earlier or mentioned about, giving your child chores. A 5-year-old can be given a number of chores that they can be successful at. And really, you should be encouraging your child to have responsibilities in the home beginning at a young age. Age 4, age 5, it really is not too young to be giving your child some chores to do. And it's teaching them to learn some responsibility. So receiving an allowance, for example, if you give your child some chores to do, then provide you the opportunity to teach other types of skills or types of expectations you may have in your family, such as tithing, saving money, being responsible with what you're given, and then, of course, spending as well. So I put in parentheses here what you can teach with 10 quarters. So 10 quarters is $2.50. And what's nice about there being 10 of them is if you're teaching your child to tithe, 10% of 10 quarters is 1 quarter. So you can teach your 5-year-old that when you get your allowance each week, one of these quarters goes to the church. And then you can determine ahead of time how much you would expect your child to save. So saving could be a quarter or maybe 2 quarters. So every week, one quarter goes to tithing, 1 or 2 quarters goes to savings, and then the rest of the quarters are for spending money. And another simple skill you can also teach even a 5-year-old is that 4 of those quarters are the same or equal $1, because it's a lot easier to count dollars than quarters when your child every week is going to want to know how much money they have. So this is a simple way to start introducing them to money, introducing them to being responsible with their money, and then also being able to understand, oh, I worked hard, I earned this money, and now I actually have something. I can go to the store and buy something, either after a few weeks if they're going to get something small, or maybe even learning that delayed gratification, that if you save your spending money for a while, you can actually get something a little bit bigger. And then going to the store, teaching them that number before the dot, is the price tag, and teaching more and less. Like, do you have enough money to buy this? Is the amount of money you have, is that number bigger or smaller than that price tag? So there's just so many skills that you can teach if you give your child responsibilities at home and chores and an allowance. So just some things to think about. Also, playing store at home. So, play money, just pretending things are different amounts and using that to play store is also a way that you can encourage teaching what different money values are, teaching more and less, and just having fun playing store. So this is by no means an exhaustive list of all the fun ways you can support your child's learning at home, but I do hope these ideas have been helpful, and I would encourage you to please share this video link with other parents as well. Thank you for joining me today, and God bless.